You're traveling to a dimension that no gamer dares to go, not because of the fright of what they know, but of what they don't know. And in 2022, some may not even get this parody at all. But regardless, your next stop, the Bear Bite Zone.
You see what I mean? You see that? The right English, the right draw, perfect position, right? What do I get? Fats Brown, that's what I get. Fats Brown. Well, I'm sick of it. I'm sick of hearing his name. I'm the best pool cue on Randolph Street. Me. Jesse Carter, and you know that. All right. All right, Fats was good. I mean, he was good, right? But he's dead. You hear me? He's dead. He's been dead for over 15 years. But every time I turn around, I hear his name.
Pictured here is a tale as old as time, relatively speaking. Greatness outshined by greatness before, the young so eager to be seen as the best. The comparison to be made, the genre definer, the game of games. Soon you'll realize that being the best at anything carries its own risk, in or out of the Bear Bite Zone. As any JRPG fan has come to know in recent years, Persona 5 has lived on as an undead monster of sorts. It's a great game, sure, no one is denying that, but its initial reach has gone far beyond its own life. As for evidence, look no further than the humble game journalist. These articles and videos seem to have a fixation on comparing Persona 5 to any JRPG that comes out with even a hint of similarity. It has gotten to the point that it's even clouded the judgment of Persona 5. Rather than seeing it as another good game,
Which it is.
we praise it to unrealistic standards, which in turn brings challengers to the table. Fans and games alike come clawing and gnashing to be the very best and challenge the golden standard. And some even get their chance. But let's ask a preliminary question. Why are we using it as a gold standard in the first place? To answer this, let's focus back on the humble game journalist. With little to no qualifications or barriers for entry, the game journalist seems to have freedom at first glance. Freedom that, some may think, would generate better reviews. It's an open opinion from a fresh perspective. What could go wrong? Well, quite a bit actually. No barriers also means that the reviewer can have zero context on the thing that they're reviewing.
And there are even a few post-game surprises to keep you training the Pokemon you actually want to train long after you're done with the more superfluous HMs.
Now in some cases this can be a good thing, certain pieces of media function and benefit from standing on their own. But there's a number of times where context is needed to be able to review a game. And if you're a game journalist, the amount of context you'll need to cover all your bases from your Marios to Metal Gears is unachievable. Even if you play a game every day, you will have blind spots. Compounding this issue is the fact that most game journalists are not self-employed, rather they work for a company like IGN or Kotaku. Not only do you lack the freedom to choose what game lands on your desk to pump out a review, but you have to rush. Given the nature of review embargoes and the push to get your review out before your competitors, you are lucky to get 2 or 3 weeks to play and finish a game, write a review, and have it looked over and edited and finally published. For some games, this is doable, like I can imagine a platformer getting justice in that time frame. What about Xenoblade Chronicles? What about Tales of Arise? What about Shin Megami Tensei 5? That is a task that most people could not accomplish, myself included. So what do? We cut corners. The act of comparing A to B is useful to convey your point because if you're familiar with B, you'll get an idea of what A is like immediately. You, the reader, fill in the gap. You do the work for the writer. It is so prevalent in video games that we even do it in conversation. How often when trying to convince someone to play a game that you say a phrase like, "Oh, it's like blank but darker," or "It's like blank mixed with blank"? It feels natural. So as a writer, what do you pick from to help illustrate your point that guarantees readers will know what you're talking about? You pick the Persona 5s, the games that have such clout attached to their name, whether by merit or hype, that they can convey your points. But what if the comparison isn't valid? This is the start of what I like to call the Persona 5 effect. The journalist companies crunch their writers. The writers desperately write to meet deadlines and thus cut corners. The games they use to compare are thrown haphazardly into the fray to draw some resemblance of shared knowledge from writer to reader. Thus, this pisses off a lot of people because of twofold. One, the comparison may not be valid to make in the first place for a variety of different reasons. And two, it looms over the fans of the reviewed game, never being the standard, always being second place.
Means a lot to you, doesn't it? Even as a dead man, have your name up there, the unbeatable champ of all times.
The golden standard is solidified and the cycle continues. So we acknowledge this effect, but can we stop it? Is there a future in game journalism where the Persona 5 effect is no more? Sadly, I don't see that happening. On one hand, there's the crunch. If we somehow got rid of that and replaced it with a more writer-friendly environment, then maybe there'd be a chance. But this is asking a lot for a company to do. I'm sorry, I just don't put my faith in companies to do the right thing. On the other hand, we have to contend with the nature of greatness. As long as greatness exists, there will always be those who challenge it. As long as that goal is in sight, there will always be those who chase after it. The status quo is a consequence of in-between periods of change. People, including you and me, take comfort in those comparisons of the best, some even striving to be in the very same conversation. But I think the question that we really need to ask is if it's even worth it. All those eyes on you from down below, each a new enemy, while you stand alone on your big mountain. Do you really want your game to be the next Persona 5? Or maybe even the next Dark Souls? Because I can guarantee you that you are getting more than what you bargained for.
Jesse Carter. And now, I'm the best. And I'm gonna stay the best, because nobody's ever gonna take it away from me. Nobody ever!
So to each gamer out there wishing for their game to be the very best, consider that there is a special place for your game and others like it in the Bear Bite Zone.
Thank you guys so much for watching this special Halloween episode of Bear Bites. I love the Twilight Zone, so it was really fun making an episode based around it. But if you have any thoughts about what we talked about today, please leave a comment down below. I'd love to get a discussion going. Like, subscribe, but until next time, John A.